In this lesson, we're going to go over fractions, decimals, and percents. Make sure that you have your calculator ready as we're going through this lesson. Our objectives are to understand the relationship between fractions and decimals. We'll learn to convert a fraction or decimal to a percent, and we'll convert a percent into a fraction or a decimal. To get started, fractions, as we talked about before, come in the form of a over b, where there's a numerator and a denominator. Fractions can be written as one of two types of decimals. The first is terminating, or decimals that end. And the second is repeating, which is what it sounds like, a decimal that repeats itself, so it may go on and on and on, but there's a pattern there, or numbers that are repeating themselves. So for instance, decimals that end would be like 0.25, 3.45, and so on. Repeating decimals would be things like 0.333, and so on, or 1.23, 0.23, 23, etc., and it goes on and on and on. There are some decimals that can't be written as fractions, such as like pi, which is an irrational number. Okay, so a couple of tips here. To convert fractions to decimals, you'll use division. Remember that the fraction bar means division. And to convert decimals to fractions, we'll use place value. A few buttons on your calculator as you're going through, so take a picture of the screen or write these down. I've got simplifying a fraction up there for you. To convert a decimal to a fraction, those buttons are there for you. And to convert a fraction to a decimal, there's buttons there for you as well. And so I will show you as we're going through these how to do them by hand. I'll also be using my calculator here. I've got a Texas Instruments. I also have the Casio. If you've got a different calculator, again, just make sure that you're able to do the same things, and if you have any questions, let me know. So let's get started. Express the following rational number. Rational number just means fraction as a decimal. So for A, 7 over 10, 7/10, this means 7 divided by 10. If you put this into your calculator, you'll get 0.7. Also notice that 7 is in the tenths place, and this fraction is 7/10. For part B, 1/3, you would take 1 divided by 3 in your calculator, and you would get 0.3333 repeating. So there's a couple of different ways that you would see repeating decimals. One way is you would see a line over the number that repeats. So with the line being over 3, that means the 3 is going to repeat. I believe in my math lab they have you put the repeating digit in a parentheses to denote that that's going to repeat. Okay. Going the other way, express the following decimal number as a fraction and then write that fraction in lowest terms. And so you can use the buttons on your calculator for this, or like I mentioned, I'll show you how to calculate these by hand. So we had in the notes that to convert a decimal to a fraction to use place value. So this 2 is in the tenths place, so this is 2 because that's the number we have, over 10, and then completely reduced would be 1 over 5. For part B, we have 25 in the tenths, hundredths, thousandths place, so this is 25 over 1,000, and you can use your calculator or you can use division to reduce this down. This is 1 over 40. Okay, and for the last one, 3.4. So this is 3 4/10. So this one will go to a mixed number first, and then we'll go to an improper fraction. So 3 is our whole number, 4/10 is our proper fraction, that's part of the mixed number, which completely reduced is 3 2/5, and then you use what we did in the previous lesson to convert this mixed number into a fraction. So the final answer here is 17 over 5. Okay, there's also ways to check your work. So if you go back and take 1 divided by 5, you would get 0.2, or if you did 1 divided by 40, you would get 0.025, and then if you did 17 over 5, you would get 3.4. Okay, so there's ways to check your work with these ones as well. Let's move into talking about percent. So percent means per 100. So to convert decimals to percent, you'll multiply by 100, which is the same thing as moving the decimal 2 places to the right and then add a percent sign. And then to convert percents to decimals, divide by 100, which is the same as moving 2 places to the left, and then you would remove the percent sign. Percentages are helpful because we're taking everything per 100. So it's like we're leveling the playing field to be out of 100, and then it can be helpful to compare what's happening. And so we'll take a look at an application problem related to that later on. Okay, so example number 1, express the decimal as a percent or find the percent notation for the decimal number. I try to include the different instructions that are in my lab just to associate what we're doing. And so when we're converting decimals to percents, we multiply by 100, which is the same thing as moving the decimal 2 places to the right, and then add the percent sign. Same thing, we would multiply by 100, which is the same as moving the decimal 2 places to the right, so this would be 3%. Okay, and then 52, if you multiply by 100, here there's no decimal, so it would go after the 2, so this would be 5,200, and then with the percent sign. Okay. Next, we'll go the other way where we'll write the decimal or change the percent to the decimal, so going the other way around. So you could take 24 divided by 100, and this would give us 0.24, or it's the same as moving the decimal 2 places to the left. If there's no decimal provided, it always goes after the ones place. Okay. Problem B, so we'd move it 2 places, 1, 2. There would be a 0 here, so 0.055, or again, if you divided by 100, you would get the same thing. And then 650%, 1, 2, this would just be 6.5. Okay, and again, you could check your work. You could change these answers back into a percent, and then you should get what we were given originally. And just to show you an application of percentages, so let's say we were given these shooting percentages of our Golden Knights players during the 2019-2020 playoffs season. So Alex Tuch, 17 out of 125, William Karlsson, 21 out of 200, and then Chandler Stevenson, 12 out of 96. Now the NHL has its way of calculating what it means to have a shot on goal, but for all intensive purposes, this is how many times they've made it versus how many times they've attempted it. So if you're looking at these fractions, you're like, well, who does better? They all have different denominators, they have different numerators, what are we working with here? You can convert these fractions to percentages in order to compare them, because percentages level the playing field with that. So you would take 17 divided by 125, which would be 68%. So Alex Tuch, oh, not 68. That should be 13.6. Had the wrong answer written in my notes. That would be a really high percentage. So Alex Tuch is 13.6, William Karlsson, 10.5, makes it 10.5% of the time, and 12 out of 96 would be 12.5%. So what this is meaning, remember, percent means per 100, is with Alex Tuch making 17 out of 125 total attempts, changing this into a percent, that means that we would expect him to make it 13.6 times out of 100. With William Karlsson, 10.5 times out of 100 attempts. Chandler Stevenson, 12.5 goals out of 100 attempts. So this is how we're leveling it to be all out of 100. We're essentially converting these fractions to be out of 100 and making it into a percentage. Okay, so in this case, our player that had the best shooting percentage is Alex Tuch. Another example that you'll see in the notes is taking a certain ratio or a given fraction, expressing it as a fraction, a reduced fraction, a decimal, and a percent. So it says MGM laid off 18,000 of its 74,500 employees. Express this as a fraction, reduced fraction, a decimal, and a percent. So as a fraction, you just take the numbers given, okay, 18,000 out of 74,500. To write this as a reduced fraction, I recommend using your calculator. So, and then as a decimal, you would take 36 divided by 149, and we're rounding to the hundredths place, so this would go out 2 decimal places. And then as a percentage, I'm getting, so it says round to 2 decimal places as needed, so that means make it into a percentage first, and then make sure you're at 2 decimal places. So this is 0.2416107 ... If we move the decimal places 2 to the right, 24 point, and then we would have 1/6. That 1 to the right of the 6 doesn't make it round, so that would be 24.16%. Okay, so typically if we were in a classroom setting, I would be making sure all of you were able to do these on your calculator. That's a tool that you're able to use for this class, so please make sure this lesson and the last working with fractions that it's working on your calculator, and if not, feel free to email me or come to my office hours so you can show me what calculator you have so we can make sure it's working for you. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you have any questions.